So I have got a couple of opening remarks I'd like to make. First of all, I'd like to officially welcome all of you to the 7th Annual St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame Dinner. It is my honor and privilege to represent the St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame Board of Directors. We welcome the 2014 class of inductees. They take their well-deserved place next to those who formed, nurtured, and guided St. Louis amateur hockey to the level where it is today. There are many of us in this room that remember a time where a St. Louis youth hockey team would struggle to win a game in Chicago, let alone think about competing against teams from Canada. We now find ourselves at a point where St. Louis youth hockey teams not only compete for, but also win national championships at every age level. St. Louis youth hockey teams every season skate off the ice surfaces throughout the country, as well as international tournaments with first-place hardware. At every level of international competition, U.S. national team rosters are populated with players that started their careers right here in St. Louis. If I remember correctly, for the 2013-2014 season, there were 11 players of the National Hockey League rosters that called St. Louis their hometown and where they learned how to play hockey. St. Louis amateur hockey has reached the levels it has due to efforts, commitment, and dedication and sacrifice of those we induct tonight and those that the Hall has honored before them. Now, when I was asked to act as Master of Ceremonies for tonight, I knew I would have an opportunity to make these opening remarks. Selfishly, I formed two immediate objectives. First, by example, I wanted to demonstrate for these fine gentlemen up here with me what a speech under 5 minutes feels like. Second, I wanted to correct what I perceived to be a wrong. 7 years ago, at the first St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame dinner, one of the speakers that evening said something to the effect that St. Louis amateur hockey really began when the Blue Note signed Brett Hull. Now, I speak for myself only at this point, but immediately I heard the voices of Gary Coleman, "What you talking about, Willis?" and Napoleon Dynamite, "Idiot." Brett Hull was traded to the Blues in March 1988. In 1976, Hall of Famer Dave Bates, after playing for Hall of Famer coach Lou Struckman and the first Junior B team, was invited to the National Hockey League California SEALs training camp. Brett Hull was 12 years old. In the early 1960s, Hall of Famer Eddie Olson Sr., who had played professional hockey for a decade in the American Hockey League, along with teammates from the St. Louis Flyers, organized the first St. Louis youth hockey team at Steinberg. This was the early 60s. Brett Hull was born in 1964. In the 1950s, Hall of Famer Roy Weaver was playing for the amateur St. Louis Octopus Hockey Club, who filled their schedule with home-and-home series with the Memphis All-Stars. In 1967, with the aid of Bill Hodge and Hall of Famer Jake Hinister, they formed the Granite City Hockey Association. Brett Hull was 3 years old. Hall of Famer Mr. Jim Joe Sr. first sponsored an Afton House team in '72. 75, he became president of the CBC hockey team. After already supporting the Junior B Blazers and the Afton Americans, he became owner of the St. Louis Junior Blues in 1987. They have gone on to win 5 national championships. Brett Hull came to St. Louis in 1988. Hall of Famer Mark Smith, after learning to love the game of hockey as a stick boy for the St. Louis Blues, with the support and guidance of many already in the St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame, along with his own dedication to the game, found himself playing Junior A with Guy Lafleur and Andre Savard with the Quebec Ramparts of the Quebec Major Junior League. The year was 1969. Brett Hull was 5 years old. Now, please know that this is not to bash Brett Hull. It's to bash the idea that hockey in St. Louis, amateur or professional, began in 1988. No, St. Louis amateur hockey began with those that we've previously honored before tonight. It began with countless other men and women who assisted and worked with those in the hall. It began with former St. Louis Blues Carl Brewer skating and coaching my Granite City Pee Wee team in 1970. It began with Noel Picard, Bob Plager, Gary Unger, previous winners of the St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame Spirit Award. As they took the time to become involved with St. Louis amateur hockey, the same can be said for a number of their teammates as well as Blues players before them and after them that have made St. Louis their home, raised their families here, and given up their time to coach. St. Louis amateur hockey really began with those to my left and those to my right. It began with most of you and our friends and those we remember with great fondness and gratitude. These collective efforts culminate in an evening like this when we are able to count amongst us the first St. Louisan to have his name engraved on the Stanley Cup. It's the greatest sport in the world. Before we go any further, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask all of the Hall of Famers that are in the room to please stand up. And Spirit Award winners, please.